A noose found hanging at a construction site is disturbing. That it happened 5 times, well, that's beyond awful. But it's what happened recently in the provincial capital, and that's only one such incident. Acts of that sort have now prompted people in the trades and a number of construction companies to try to move the needle on racism and sexism in their industry. With us now, for more on that, in Mississauga, Ontario, Samuel Ajobo. He's an estimator at Ellis-Don and chair of the company's Alliance of Black Employee Experience and Leadership. In Markham, Ontario, Sefton Spence, vice president of the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association. He's also the CEO of Cubby Construction. And in Rexdale, in the northwestern part of the provincial capital, Rosemarie Powell. She's executive director at Toronto Community Benefits Network. Great to have you three with us tonight here on TVO. I want to just start with a very general question to each of you and find out why you chose to pursue a career in construction. Rosemarie, you want to start us off?
It's really wonderful to be here today. Yeah, so a career in construction, not necessarily me. As a woman, it's not something that I ever thought that I would be able to do. But really, I'm not a construction worker, but a community organizer. And what I do is to ensure that young people and people who have been left out of the construction industry are able to get access to good jobs and opportunities whenever there's a major infrastructure project that is being built.
We'll find out why that may be a problem as we go along. Sefton Spence, how about you? Why are you in construction?
Well, how you doing? Well, construction, it goes all the way back to Randolph Townsend that took me underneath his wings from a young age and said, here you go, I want you to come with me. But the only problem was he made me push broom for 6 months. I wasn't able to do any work, but he wanted to say, if you are able to run the cleanest site, you'll be a good worker one day. So that's how I got into construction, through Randolph Townsend, mentor.
How long ago was that?
Man, I was 12 years old. So that's about 35, 40 years ago.
Well, okay, fantastic. And Samuel, how about you? Why are you in the trade you're in?
You know, for me, construction allowed me the opportunity to be able to apply my undergraduate studies into various elements of life. And it allows me to meet a lot of people and to be able to have the opportunity to develop a career that brings together a lot of systems and projects, and also builds a lot of communities, and also meet a lot of people and build a lot of great relationships.
That is all true, Samuel, but I'm going to do a follow-up with you. It cannot have escaped your notice, obviously, in the years that you've been doing this, which is more than a decade now, that there aren't too many people in construction who look like you. Is that a problem for you?
Yes, it is a problem for me, Steve. And first of all, thank you for bringing me on the show to talk about this. And yes, you're correct. There is not a lot of people that look like me, but I believe, moments like this are times that will help to bridge that gap and make things happen.
Sefton, how about you? The fact that there aren't too many people who look like you in the construction trades, how problematic in your eyes?
Problematic? It is problematic, and it will change over the next couple years. I think there is a great unleash of knowledge and wealth and understanding about the problems that we have as systemic racism, different things like that, that is coming to the forefront. And I believe that these areas will change.
Rosemarie, can I get your judgment on whether you think or how well you think the sector is doing on issues around diversity and inclusion, equity, that kind of thing?
The sector does not have a good track record. That being said, people of color and Black people have been building up this country for many years prior to the time of slavery. And so it is important that we are recognized for the important work that we are doing, building up our communities and building the prosperity of this country.
And your network, what role does it play in the construction industry?
We're an organization that comes together with different stakeholders to be able to create change. We're a community labor coalition, so we've built a network of over 120 organizations and groups, and labor organizations and groups, and social enterprises as well. We have 10 of the largest construction unions who are members of the TCBN and who recognize that change needs to happen and that they are going to diversify in partnership with the community.
Do you think you're making progress?
I think we absolutely are. TCBN is a 5-year-old organization, and we have seen a lot of change since then. Our first project, the Eglinton Crosstown, has hired more than 350 people so far on that project alone, and we have over 5 projects that we're managing now. And just recently, we got a really great commitment from the City of Toronto for a 10% target of equity-seeking groups onto the construction projects that the city is building. So, and we're going to see more changes going forward with all these stakeholders coming together.
Samuel, give me an example of an initiative you might have undertaken at Ellis Don to try to move the yardsticks forward.
So, Steve, for us in Ellis Don, when we, recently when we encounter recent incidents around racism and overt actions around racism, the senior management in Ellis Don, Jeff, Kieran, and all of these people stood up to say, we got to put a team together to assist us in bringing visibility, awareness, education to all of these things that are going on. And within Ellis Don, we formed a group called the Alliance of Black Employee Experience and Leadership. And with this group, it incorporates more than 47 members of Ellis Don that are Black and non-Black allying together to bring about education and awareness and empowerment into the industry, both within Ellis Don and outside Ellis Don, and into our communities. And this includes working with neighborhood schools. This includes working with local organizations and other underrepresented and underserved communities and organizations. And this includes working internally with our employees in-house to ensure that they are well served and their equity and inclusion is taking a high priority within Ellis Don.
Okay, I understand that mission statement, but what does that actually look like in terms of making actual progress on the job, on the ground?
So, number one is for ABLE, which I call the Alliance of Black Employee Experience and Leadership, is 2 things: education and empowerment simultaneously. In regards to education, the first thing we're doing in-house is setting up a lot of initiatives in-house around materials, around book clubs, movie clubs, around events that allows us to raise the awareness around racism and all the overt actions and how these things are not supposed to be having a place in our industry. On the other piece is the empowerment piece, which ensures that we work with local organizations, we work with schools across the country to ensure that we bring awareness into the pipeline and into some of the challenges we are facing right now in the industry, which is we are having a lot of retirees that are leaving the industry, and we need to fill that gap. And our goal is to ensure that the pipeline of employees coming in from the future generation, our students, they grow into a workplace, an industry that is actually taking the right steps in ensuring equal representations of Black people and other underrepresented groups, and also ensures that people that are underserved have equitable positions within leadership positions in places like Ellis Don.
Okay, understood. Sefton, let me put the same question to you. At the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association, what are you trying to do to make progress?
Well, what our mandate is to bring Black construction workers to the forefront. And by doing that, we have, again, missed the mark. There have been a lot of minority situations that has gone out where the government has allotted funds to the minority groups, but because they could not find them for 3 different reasons: 1, they didn't know of the situation; 2, they weren't aware of how to get or access the situation; or the third part is not being able to come to the table at the same time others were at the table in discussing and taking a slice of the pie. With that, now we are enabling the Black community, as in minorities in the construction industry, to have access to it. By them having access to it, now they don't have a right to say, we did not know. They don't have a right to say that we weren't privileged to the information. But by doing that now, we are teaching the construction workers in many aspects. For those that are not incorporated, that want to be incorporated, we're allowing them to have that knowledge. For them that needs to know how to read a tender, that gives them access to now better job opportunities. We allow that also. We're teaching them on every single level that there is to become a better contractor within the system. Not only that, we're allowing them to have awareness on every level of all the different opportunities that is happening within their area. Now, this spreads not just for Ontario, but we're from all the way from Vancouver all the way to Nova Scotia. So this is a national event in which we're pushing forward.
Understood. I want to take you back to what I said right off the top of this discussion, and that is, nooses have been found in the city of Toronto on construction sites over the past year. Rosemary, you talked about the Eglinton Crosstown and how happy you were to see people of color getting job opportunities there. There was a noose found on a construction site there. The Michael Garron Hospital, 15 minutes from this studio. There were nooses found there as well, 2 nooses. Black construction workers found them. The noose, of course, evocative of a time in the awful history of the United States when blacks were taken out by gangs and lynched. Nooses put above trees and black people lynched. It's a bit like seeing a swastika on the side of a synagogue if you're a Jewish person. I'd like to know, Rosemary, when you heard about these incidents, I want to know what your reaction was to them.
Well, it was demoralizing. And we heard that directly from the members of our Next Gen Builders mentoring program, which is a program that's funded by the Ontario government to support Black youth to access the trades. And we had hundreds of them in our program, and it resonated throughout our network. And it was very sad. That being said, there were some organizations that really stepped up. Elliston stepped up, ACON stepped up. We had the Carpenters Union, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Our members and unions and industry partners really stepped up and said, no, together we have to dismantle anti-Black racism and systemic racism within our industry. And one of the first things that we did was to really bring together some of the leaders from the construction industry together, especially those Black leaders who have been enduring in the system for years. And we had an information session, a webinar where over 500 people attended and really heard from people who have the lived experience in the industry, and to talk about the impacts that this systemic and anti-Black racism has on them, and what we need to do as a community, as an industry together to really just tear it down from the roots. And we are working in partnership with these different organizations. We have established the Building Diversity Awards and Recognition Program, which is one way of really working with the industry to, number one, not just patting yourselves on the back, but saying, let's do an assessment of what our workplace looks like. Let's look at the benchmarks for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to say, what are the areas that we need to change, and take some intentional efforts to do continuous improvement over the next several years. Because we know that this has been ingrained in the industry for so many years, for over 100 years. It's going to take time and intentional effort to be able to create the change that we want to see. But we know that in partnership with ACON, Elliston, and these general contractors and our union partners, and the community, of course, is really key. And those individuals with the lived experience working in these workplaces and within these systems, we're going to be able to see change. Samuel,
I want to follow up with you. I guess one of the things that made these findings of these nooses on construction sites so appalling was that it happened just in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing in Minnesota, which meant that people were attuned to this issue, to the issue of racism in a way that they hadn't been before, and yet some idiot still felt it was appropriate to do something like this. That's very discouraging. I wonder what your reaction was at the time.
Honestly, to you, Steve, it was distraughting. It was sad. Just as Rosemary said, it's it really brought the energy level, it brought that bad, sour environment. But you know what? In that moment, what really matters was people coming together. Leaders like Jeff Smith and other leaders within the industry coming together to say, you know what? This is something that is an issue, and we need to come together to support our Black employees and Black members of our communities and even other underrepresented groups within our workforce. And we brought together employees in the workplace to discuss why is this happening? Why do people feel comfortable enough to be able to carry out such actions? And credit to Ellis Dunn, and to this I want to say that they've been doing a lot of things even years before this around inclusive diversity. But stepping up to say this, what we were doing is not enough. We need to take it a notch further. And that brought together those discussions. And that brought together the fact of we need to kind of categorize this into short-term actions, mid-term actions, and long-term actions. And to Rosemary's point earlier, is really raising the awareness and also ensuring that we look into equity, building equity for Black people within the industry to ensure that people like myself can see Black leaders within construction sites, within the offices, and that builds that level of respect, that level of equitable representation that people feel they can't do those kind of things to people of my color and people like myself. Also, we are to up our mental health access, mental health awareness access, and also we also have to ensure that we don't sit comfortable in our reporting system. We have to ensure we create some upgrades to our reporting system so that people have a voice. People can encourage to bring to the forefront people that are engaging in these actions. So just to keep the long story short, the fact is, as Rosemary said, allyship, people coming together, really encourage people like myself to say, we got to step up, we got to stand together, and we got to help propel this change. And really seeing intentional actions help to propel our trust again, because trust was broken, and I felt that broken trust. But seeing people coming together help to make that happen again for someone like myself.
Just before I get Sefton back in here, I guess we should mention, you talked about Jeff Smith in that answer, and Jeff Smith is the owner and head of Ellis Don. The Don in Ellis Don is Don Smith, his dad, who started the company, of course, many, many decades ago. So I thought I'd just explain that. Okay, Sefton, let's hear from you on this. And in answering the question, maybe you can tell us, during the course of your career, how much racism you yourself have experienced on the job.
Wow. You know what? I want to thank Rosemary and Samuel for their answers. It's really strengthening to hear those words, and to also not only hearing the words, but I've heard and I've seen the responses that has been put forward by them. Now, the experience in the workforce, I have many times received and jobs from different organizations, different companies, where we've come in to build a complete a structure. And after being on the phone, going through the emails, sending in the tenders, receiving the welcome packages, now going out to meet who's in charge, and you sit there and you wait in the office, and the person comes out once and they look around. They come out twice, they look around. Then they come out the third time. This is half an hour after our bid there. And they said, has Mr. Spence shown up yet? Well, the situation is Mr. Spence has been here for about 40 minutes, and I'm Spence. And on the way back to the office where you hand over your package with all your certificates and everything like that, now you sit down in the office and he tells you that the job is no longer available. This is after when you've done all the procurement, you've done everything already to secure the job, and even transfer of information, security codes, different things like that. That has happened, and it's happened more than once in my experience. Many times because I don't have maybe a strong accent when it's necessary, they mistakenly and think, oh, you were of a different, culture. So, but when I go out on site and they look at me, then they go, oh, okay, this doesn't work. So it's happened many times. I've had also recently with my own son in Vancouver, finding a noose right beside himself, put there by another worker. It touches home. It changes your look. It changes your thoughts. It makes you think, what did you do wrong? Where did I go wrong?
Sefton, let me jump in here. Do you think it's possible the people who do these things with the nooses don't appreciate the significance or the gravity of that action?
Ignorance goes a long way. And I think, yes, there is a gravity that they don't understand because they haven't gone through the process. They haven't gone through the lifestyle. Now, I can't say that I have also gone through it as such, but my son out in Vancouver first, they targeted his car and they wrote nigger on the side of his car. I'm going to put it out there frankly. But the community rallied around him. And even the dealership where he went to get his car looked at to be refixed, they took it and they redid his whole entire car just because of what somebody else in their ignorance had done. Now, within the community, and there's that fear within the construction workers because they're not too sure what the next step is. So that's why agencies like TCCBN and Samuel over there at Ellis Don are really necessary. And here at ACA, it's really necessary that we as a whole strengthen the community, bring them together with knowledge and understanding and put them together so that they could stand up again, because this thing beats them down and they're not too sure on what is it that they need to do in going forward.
Rosemarie, I also want to bring gender into this discussion. And, well, to do so, let me try this. I saw a comment on Twitter the other day which said something to the effect of, we're never going to see 50-50 male-female participation in the construction industry because there are not that many women who want to be roofers when it's -12 outside. Okay, so we have that issue, and then we have the issue of fairness and access to jobs that more women might actually want to have in construction. Can you talk about that and how much of the disparity in numbers comes from the fact that as many women as men don't want to be in construction, and how much of it is still there are too many barriers to those who want to be in?
It's complex. It really is. And it really starts from before you're even born. As a woman in society, we are told and we are socialized to not believe that we actually have an opportunity in the trades, that we can do heavy work, that we can do work outside and in the cold. But you know what? Things are changing and there are more women, and we see it in our work, who are actually demanding access into the trades and into these good opportunities, because especially within the unionized sector, these are good jobs that start out as an apprentice with no experience, making over $25, $26 an hour. And every year it goes up based on, the hours that you've earned and the experience that you've built up. And women, we love being able to master our trade and to do something so well and to be passionate about it. And we want to be able to do that and to bring our whole selves into the workplace. And so this socialization that actually happens from society to tell us that construction is not a place for us, it really needs to stop. Then again, there is a lack of information, because sometimes women just don't know that within the trades, there are so many different kinds of trades. You don't have to be a roofer. You can be an electrician, you could be a painter, you could be a plumber, you could be a drywaller. There's just so many different opportunities that are out there that women are not aware of. And again, because they were not socialized to understand the opportunities. It's in the school system as well. Women are screamed into particular areas or careers, and it needs to change. And sometimes it's not just the men who are telling the women this, it also comes from our parents and our mothers. And so it's a complex situation that definitely needs to change. But in the workplace, employers really need to know that they're missing out on a talented pool of people who could be helping to build up their communities and building infrastructure of this great country. And they should be tapping into women, and they might need to make some changes, like simple things, access to bathrooms, childcare, and other things that we have to be considerate. And what we do for women is also really good for men as well. So let's start there.
Well, in our remaining couple of minutes here, I wanted to go to Samuel. I love this expression, Samuel. You know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And the more we see it, the more opportunities, obviously, for those who are having trouble being it at the moment. What would you like to see happen in the days and years ahead? The obstacles, for example, that need to still be overcome.
So for me, Steve, the things I want to see, there are a couple of things. One, I want to see the possibility, I want to see come to life an equitable representation of Black, white, indigenous, and every group that we could associate Canada with. And I hope to go into a workplace to see employees at leadership positions that are people like myself. I hope to see women in leadership positions. I hope to see people of the indigenous communities in leadership positions. I hope to see the industry embracing businesses from underserved and underrepresented groups. This is my hope for the industry. And just to touch on Rosemary's point, you know, we in LSDAN, to make this happen, we are going back to the schools. We are going back into the community to say, we want to raise the awareness, the education, down to our high school students and elementary schools to say, construction is a place for you, irrespective of your race or your gender or your abilities or disabilities. Construction is also more than just wearing a vest and ADAT. There is a lot of components in the industry. And know what? Companies like LSDAN and other community organizations like TCBN and also Spencer's organization are willing to help you and mentor you and coach you into having a successful career within this industry.
That's a great place to leave this. I want to thank the three of you for coming on to TVO tonight and helping us understand this issue so much better. Samuel Ajobo, Sefton Spence, Rosemary Powell. Great to have you all on side tonight, and I hope you're all staying safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Have a great one. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.